Well, hello, everybody. Respected professionals, honorable keynote speaker, Mr. Emil Hamatwi, distinguished session leader, Mr. Lopez Isabel Masango, and presenters, Ms. Isabel Besagaracia, Dr. Altanai Kudai Berganova, Ms. Elsa Demini, Ms. Iza Khan, and Mr. Prakash Jungaru. So greetings to you all. It's Wednesday, April 6, 2022. You are now attending the International Virtual Conference on Museums IVCOM conference of Group 7 Africa. And today is the second session conference with CECA Mozambique. And well, I'm very, very delighted to welcome you all on behalf of ICOM CECA Mozambique and ICOM Family Forum. My name is Mina Lama. I'm a member of ICOM Nepal, and I will be moderating today's session. So before we begin, I would like to request that all the attendees please turn off your microphones so that we don't have any background noises. And also this session is being recorded, so the link will be accessible in our messenger group of Family Forum after we finish the session. And any questions for the presenters, please use the chat box to place the questions for them, and I will read them out for our presenters. And besides this, well, if you have time, you can also interact with the presenters in the later hours. And all the presenters, each presenters will be receiving a total of 20 minutes for the presentation. So, all right. So with these informations, I would like to commence today's session with the introduction of our honorable keynote speaker, Mr. Emil Hamatwi. Well, he is the current president of ICOM Zambia, and he's also the head of educational services for the Choma Museum in Zambia. Well, without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Emil Hamatwi for the presentation, and well, I'll be sharing the screen for him. Hello, sir.
Thank you very much, Mina. I'm very happy to be given this chance to present again. We had a wonderful moment yesterday, and we are going to continue again today. So my presentation is literally sharing my experiences from Japan. You may appreciate that Zambia does not have any training programs in our country. So we have a partnership with our friends in Japan, where a Zambian is invited from time to time to go and train there. So basically what you're going to experience now is a form of a report on my experiences in Japan and the status of museums in Zambia. So this report, this presentation is a product of my experiences. We had lectures, a lot of field visits, practical lessons, particularly to a number of prefectures in Japan, almost 20 of them. And we had a specialized training programs in exhibition design and preventive conservation. There is a place called Sweeter City, where we trained a lot in specialized groups, and we went to other places like Hirano and Takatsuki, where we identified similarities with experiences in Zambia. So these are the things that you'll be hearing, and that is my presentation. Next slide, please. I am using my skills now, which I acquired in Japan, to localize the training. Zambia doesn't have a training program for museum professionals. So the idea was to localize the training in Zambia so that Zambian professionals can learn to network with former JICA participants. JICA, J-I-C-A, is simply a Japanese government agencies that supports international development to partner countries. We were 10 in the museum course. We had friends from 9 other countries, including Zambia. And these are now my friends who are helping me here, sharing and networking our experiences. Also, the greatest motivation of this report is the needs of museums in Zambia. Museum professionals and the museum themselves have a lot of needs, and therefore these are what has inspired me to put up this presentation so that I can share the challenges in Zambia and the experience from Japan. Next slide, please. What did I learn in Japan? The first thing is that Japan has a consistent way of passing on memories and lessons from history. They have the posterity of Japan will have a pretty good idea of their heritage, covering issues and documentations covering several centuries. The Japanese museums have remarkable displays in their exhibition floors and well-documented database, as you will see. Japan has also demonstrated to the rest of the world how to live with nature and disaster through its museums. You know that Japan lies in the Pacific Ring of Fire, and it is vulnerable to tsunamis, to earthquakes, to a number of natural disasters. And the Japanese people have managed to survive that. So I will always sing my song of what I learned in Japan. And I put it that a museum should always be a place of fun, discovery, research, learning, information, and cultural exchange. And in my country, in Zambia, what I will do is introduce papercraft. You must be aware of origamis from Japan and a lot of papercraft that they do there. There are a lot of Japanese museum newsletters, which we have introduced here in Zambia. Also, the hands-on and barrier-free methods to inculcate, to include disabled people who are normally excluded in most programs because of lack of sight or otherwise. And also to introduce the idea of performing arts in addition to existing programs at my museum, the Choma Museum Craft Center. Next slide, please. It was interesting to note, for me, it was my first museum training ever. And it was interesting to note that a museum should have a conservation policy. There is need to check the elements, fire, water, wind, sunshine, and other elements on how they affect the museum collection. And we were introduced to a number of techniques in conservation, in museum conservation, where we could check the sunshine, we could check how the condition of the objects using temperatures and other professional methods that the Japanese people employ in their museums. Next slide, please. In Japan, what I learned was that to put up an exhibition is, it is important sometimes to use professional designers. And in Japan, we were introduced to that concept where you draw up a good plan for your exhibition. You don't just do an exhibition in a haphazard manner. It has to be clearly planned with drawings. You list down the objects, the storylines, and all the facets of the exhibition. And in those pictures, you can see some members of my team where we were using models, reconstructing a scene, using dioramas and tatebanko effect. Also, we were trained by a professional designer who is coming from the industry, and we were also showed on how to restore objects during exhibition design and review. Next slide, please. December the 3rd, every year, is the International Day of People with Disabilities. And in Japan, we learned that there is a lot we can do with people with disabilities, particularly those who have got a problem with their sight. And in Zambia, I plan to work on using barrier-free method for the safety of disabled visitors, also to work with signage to take routes using user-friendly methods on signage, so that even though people have got disabilities, they're able to participate in museum activities just like able-bodied people. Next slide, please. In Japan, they have got very large museums covering a very big space environment. So sometimes if you went to the museum and you wanted specific information, they have got booths and databases. I know there's a great investment in terms of money. And I hope in Zambia one day we will be able to reach this standard. So these are some pictures from the National Museum of Ethnology, Mimpaku in Osaka, where they're doing audiovisual guides. You can check for information about a museum and its exhibitions and its activities on their websites. In Zambia, we only have one website for all the 5 museums. And sometimes it is difficult to access this website because of technical difficulties. And to a large extent, we are normally not updating the website regularly. So in Japan, they also use what they call SNS, the short network services, and Facebook. Especially this period, I'm sure most of the museums around the world were using a lot of social media to reach out to their clients, because all the museums were closed down due to COVID-19 advent in the last 2.5 years. And also the other platforms of Instagram were used by most museums, particularly for their marketing, and updates were done using Twitter. In Zambia, I introduced workshops and symposium. This is where you bring an expert in a particular field to come and give a talk, and then practicals are done. The workshop can be in various thematic areas like art, history, ethnography, natural history. It could be issues about women and men and young people. It could be specific workshop for special museum users. And in Zambia, we're trying to share this Japanese experience. Next slide, please. Staff training. In 2019, for instance, I went to Japan for 3 months in 2018, that is 3.5 years ago. And from 2019, we have enhanced the training of museum professionals using our own resources and training notes from these various courses. So the vision for ICOM Zambia is to put up a real training program in conjunction with our major university, the University of Zambia, to have a formal course in museology, even if it is just for a few months or hands-on. And the other thing is to register with TEVETA. TEVETA is the Technical Education and Vocational Training Authority in Zambia, which gives the permission to regularize the training. And also to put on board other museum, other heritage players, like the Heritage Commission, which works with the Museums Board, and the Department of Tourism and Arts. That is training. We need this slide is showing volunteer program. What the Japanese people do is that they have got a lot of people who have retired from work, and these have become resource people or resource personnel in the museum. They help to do the research, they help to do the tour guides, to mind the children, to carry out different museum curator roles. These people are called hashikashi. Hashikashi is like a bridge. The word hashikashi is a bridge of memories. These are usually elderly people with a lot of information and knowledge and experience. And in Zambia, Zambian Museum, we hope to do that also. In Japan, there is a Miyake Ecological Center, and there families and communities meet you find that mother, father, children, they all go at the same time to a community place. And it is not easy to put up family designed activities. So in Zambia, parents and children share very little time together. So we hope the museum can be a hub, a point where families can revitalize their family values. And we hope to strengthen bonds by using volunteer-driven community-owned activities and building trust issues in family, and to facilitate socialization where there's an Irish saying which says the family that plays together bonds together. Next slide, please. In Choma Museum, these are pictures taken from the National Museum of Ethnology in their shop. In Mimpaku, in Choma here in Zambia, for instance, we never had a point of sale machine. So members of staff in our shop had a difficulty all the time looking for change, or tourists from different countries could not swipe using their Visa card. But now that is also possible. We hope to introduce mail order services in our shop and using miniature toys and curios and other souvenirs that we can sell, like branded t-shirts, badges and caps. We hope to reach out to those levels. Next slide, please. When a museum visitor comes to a museum, it's important to get the feedback of their feeling. And there are various ways in which this feedback is given. It could be a note in the visitor's book. It could be a message left online or in a computer, or using post-its like you can see in the pictures there. Those are simply sticky papers which people share on the wall. And I'll show you in subsequent slides how we've managed to utilize this. So it is very important to get feedback from the visitors on how they feel. Next slide, please. So these are some of the implementations on the few things I've shown. So if you look at the top left picture, those are little children who come to Choma. That is me and the little children in my museum, trying to implement different types of activities which are interactive, which are fun, which are educative. And we play a lot, we draw and paint with the children, even with senior people like military personnel when they come for stress management services at the museum. Next slide, please. So those are some of the activities borrowed from the Japan experience, which we are implementing in Zambia. You can see young children there drawing and painting. We are using flower pots to make them more decorative, more appealing in a very good artistic way. So we are implementing in a high profile way so that Zambian museums can appreciate what others are doing in other countries like Japan, using very little resources. Next slide, please. Those are some of the trainings, staff training programs. The top right bottom is highlights on some trainings that I conducted myself using Japanese techniques and standards in order to apply various training disciplines of Japanese personnel. And on the right there are some of the Israeli students who came to visit Zambia from Israel. And I gave a talk on Zambian heritage, what we do, and some of the potentials of student researchers in our country. And at the bottom there are some students with their certificates. You can go to the next slide, Mina, it's fine. That is me there doing various works of conservation, picture, audio and visual picture taking, restoration of graves at Harry Mwangankumbula's grave, our founding father, and also some pictures showing my application or my dissemination of the training in Japan. Next slide, please. Already you can see how we are doing our things there. On the top left are some of the visitors who are coming to appreciate Choma Museum activities. On the right, there are some motivation and trophies that we give. At the bottom is a good method of leaving footprints. A child writes using a marker around their hands, and they write on a piece of paper how they felt about the visit to the museum. Next slide, please. I did not know about ICOM. I want to talk about myself. That is me in the picture there. I was motivated to run for office as ICOM Zambia president because of my experience in Japan. And I'm grateful that my friends show confidence in me and they elected me. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sir Emil, for your sharing your experiences. Well, I would like to request all our participants, attendees, if you have any question, please place the questions in our chat box. If you would like to interact with Sir Emil. Yeah. So our next presenter is, all right. So we have our honorable session leader, Mr. Lopez Isabel Masango. He belongs to ICOM CECA Mozambique, and he will be having a short presentation too. So without further delay, I would like to request Sir Lopez. Yeah. Sir Lopez, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, that's because we could not see you, so it's all right. All right. Let me share your presentation.
Thank you. Have you my slides? You share the screen.
All right, sure. Few moments, please. Yes.
Thanks. Thanks.
Please.
Okay, can you begin? My name is Lopez Masango. I'm from Mozambique. I'm teacher and the assistant of ICOM Mozambique. I wanted to presentation this slide is a result of the ideas our colleagues of ICOM CECA in Mozambique. The first slide, I will present the structure, my structure of program. Yes, thanks. The point 2, identification and the importance of the subject traits. And the point 1 and point 3, original of the project or program. And the 1 and point 4, results and the products. Finally, is consequence for the follow-up. And next slide. This program is ideas we design with my colleague. The communities interconnected or to museum. The communities interconnected to museum program aims to encourage community participation in the main museum in Mozambique. Through the activities of the museum educational service, its goals is to transmit basics nation about the educational action of museum. Based on the reflection of the new definition of the International Council of Museum discussed in the 25th ICOM General Conference in Japan, Kyoto. We a group organize the the volunteer leaders, young people. The CAIF, a group of the young volunteers, the neighborhoods of Influence A, is strengthening this program to encourage the academic communities to give more importance to museum in the teaching and learning process. Currently, some of the countries of museum are mentioned in the social science manuals, but therefore, the coordinator in the change monitoring the future development of the teacher. Sorry. I say currently of the countries museum are mentioned in the social science manuals and the body therefore the coordinator is change of monitoring the future development. The teacher have no specialist to train in museology and the cultural area make the fulfilling of the curriculum plan more difficult. Educational services decided to support schools, helping them to integrate the cultural heritage and the museum in the teaching and learning process, valuing and disseminating knowledge about the way museum can service as learning place outside the classroom. Thus, guided tours were handled in the several museums in the city of Maputo and Matola. Next two slides. Yeah, this is picture. We are organized the visit in museum. I want to share this experience because because the museum in Mozambique is not a heavy monitor of the service educative, because I organize the young people, our community. I train in the contents of a museum, different museum. I take the young people in the museum. I interrogated about the collection of the museum. I visited the Natural History Museum. I asked the child, where do you do understand about the museum? The first question ask question. The child not know is the museum. I want, we want in my group invited the teacher for the discussing the about these ideas, the ideas, the programs, the communities are connected in museum programs. The teacher, we have a difficulty to learning about the museum and the collection of museum. I invited the Elsa and Elizabeth George, our colleagues to work in the museum, CFM Museum and the Natural History Museum. I share with her, discuss about this proposal the make the plans with the service educative service in museum. The ideas say is good. This is years. I will make the plans activities for to begin the movement in our museum. I take this program for to to share the ideas for the consolidate my program, because I don't have I have a difficult about the transport and the budget for to make two and 3 in years to visit. I'm so sorry. This is presentation me for the ideas for to share in our colleagues. For me is brainstorming. I don't have the finalist program structure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Lopez, for the presentation. So next we have Ms. Isabel Besagaracia to give the presentation. And we also have Sir David, who will be helping Ms. Isabel to translate her presentations. So I will be sharing the screen for you again. All right.
Miss Mina, can it's in PDF? Sorry. Can you put? Yeah. Okay. Thank you to center the slides. Sorry. Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Mohamed Javed for his kind invitation to be part of this panel. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to share some ideas about Portuguese cultural heritage and how it is integrated with our educational system as part of citizenship. Secondly, to apologize for my lack of sufficient proficiency in English language. I have here my dear friend, Dr. David Bowman, to help me, whom I thank in advance for his availability and assistance. What is meant by citizenship? Citizenship and development, the first, please, is a curricular area of basic and secondary school, secondary education, the high school, basic and high school in the Portuguese education system. The curriculum teaches general values, especially the need to defend and preserve the memory and our cultural identity, not only the national one, but of all peoples and cultures. In other words, cultural heritage. It is a question of citizenship. In this presentation, I will explore some areas of sensitivity to heritage, pointing out some methodological paths to follow in terms of education and teaching. My purpose is to share with you cultural Portuguese heritage. The issue of cultural heritage has been deeply discussed since the beginning of the 20th century. Today, the concept, as everybody knows, seeks new paths and new areas of intervention. It includes urban and rural areas, natural and man-made, that interact with each other. Marks left by time that speak to culture and identity. It is the legacy bequeathed to future generations. The second slide, please. In the first, we have the Certas main church to see beauty, only to see beauty. And this is a Templar symbol of another Christian church it's Christian church at where I live at Certa, preserved, a symbol preserved. Cultural heritage is a sense of community and sharing. It is a responsibility to ourselves and others. It assumes an awareness of our rights, duties, and responsibilities. It presupposes the impulse towards solidarity and participation. It presupposes a desire for improvement and service. It is a spirit of innovation, of daring, of risk, of respect. In a word, citizenship. Much of the work to preserve memory and cultural identity is up to education to promote ethical and civic awareness to new generations. The work to maintain cultural heritage will be incomplete if the connection with the educational community does not work well or is not effective. What really matters is to foster awareness of heritage values, but how? Through actions, naturally, that ensure a more generalized and qualified dissemination of the heritage among people. Some of these actions must integrate significant educational components. There are several actions that are required to support these dimensions of citizenship in relation to local authorities that affirm the cultural resources in presence. For example, the European Heritage Days, the signage of specific days related to cultural heritage, National Day of Historic Centers, International Museum Day, and many others, including national days. When we speak about another slide, another slide, please, Ms. Mina. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. This is there's no matter. When we speak about heritage, it is to speak of objects and traces inscribed in time, hence the need to exercise heritage pedagogy. The importance of heritage awareness and of the knowledge and practices of active citizenship has two parts. The first, looking at the past with rigor, and the second, making a commitment for the future, just as the heritage demands it. The educational system has a fundamental role in the development of this awareness. Its participation has to be stimulated. It has to have real content, stop, and experience for young people to get involved. I emphasize the privileged role of history and geography for its contributions to the knowledge of the diverse, the different, the near and far, a common heritage and belonging, and to the awareness of the common destiny. Another slide, please. Ms. Mina, thank you. Citizenship education is discovering and strengthening the bonds that link us to the community and to teach and to each other, to complement each other. Here are teenage students with me after a theatrical experience and visit to the Museum of Rebessal. It's in center of Portugal. It's a little museum near Coimbra city. Which emerged, this museum, from the ruins of a Roman, an ancient Roman villa. When we speak of heritage, we speak simultaneously of the permanent and the ephemeral, of what exists and what is ever always changing. Next, please. In the city of Oporto, for example, the question of the permanent and ephemeral necessarily turns to the river that saw its birth, the road of its fortune that today agonizes with its success. Next, please. Along the river, the Rebelo boats, which transported the wine from the Upper Douro, known by port wine, the famous port wine. These boats have been agents of its economic, social, and cultural dynamics. This brought together men and goods and which became obsolete in the face of the railway and macadam roads since 19th century. Another, please. The river, with a long and tortuous course, furrowing mountains and valleys, violent, gentle, loved, feared, the Douro River and its boats helped to attract and has always inspired travelers, writers, and artists. Their testimonies are today precious documents of identification and reconstruction of cultural heritage. Next, please. We must not forget that the land itself, the landscape, the natural fauna and flora constitute heritage to study and protect. Here we have two waterfalls, one in the center of Portugal in mountains of Açores, and another at the National Park of Peneda Gerês, it's a World Biosphere Reserve. They are protected as natural heritage. They are beautiful, beautiful places. Encouraging young people to train and participate in heritage defense associations is an important work of schools and for schools too. It supports actions required for the protection of heritage, the research of local history, as well as for the contribution to the formation of public opinion. I will now focus myself to the built heritage. Next, please. Portuguese naturally consider not only monuments, but more importantly, the wall. A wall that contains aesthetic or environmental value, even if none of the member buildings have a great value. Here is the village of Piodon, is in the center of Portugal. White and shell stones set in sunny slopes that defy all logic and remain little changed. In this village bordered by forest, artisans have developed workshops where it is possible to find wooden spoons and schist miniatures to find the tradition of yore still alive. The conservation of nature and landscape must be integrated into a land use planning in order to guarantee economic continuity and housing without destroying the landscape and its resources, avoiding introducing forms of architecture without local tradition. Heritage must always be the practice of an idea. Commitment to theory, cultural policy, or system of ideas are always more valid than nothing at all. Speaking about heritage is speaking about the soul. It is to penetrate the collective soul, the essence of a people. Paying attention to heritage is to be admitted into an atmosphere of magic and often of silence. A return to who we are. Another, next please. A visit a medieval castle, a fortress, the castle of Guimarães in the north of Portugal, which is the birthplace of Portugal in 12th century from the Christian era. It brings back the silence that prolongs memories of legendary castles in the memory and that exalts in the imagination the stories of brave warriors. These constructions speak to our soul. The experience of history is about to happen. Aesthetic education, sensitivity education is available to everyone. It is this aspect that must be developed in young people. Next, please. Coimbra, in center of Portugal. Coimbra is a garden of columns and olive groves protected by the wall and the deep mouth of the Moorish River which only flows when the rain is heavy, as conceived by its first inhabitants, the Romans. The Museum of Coimbra contains the most significant artifacts showing how life was lived here since the 1st century BC until the destruction of the Roman city after the 5th century after Christ. You see here the ruins of a great house. The biggest house is the first at Coimbra, a Roman house. Then you have the models, two models made by architects and archaeologists of the city and the forum, money, Roman money, the museum, the entrance of the museum, a mosaic Roman with an hunting scene, and ceramic, a lot of ceramic, and another things I have here. In Coimbra, a feeling of familiarity invades us. None of that is strange, much less exotic. The site itself, with the orange trees in the museum's atrium and cypresses on the way to the ruins, we can see here, but it exists, seem to exist between it remains Italy, Tuscany, some roads between Tuscany and Portugal. In Coimbra, we surrendered to a culture that we ended up making our own. The life cycles of people who crossed over the territory of the Iberian Peninsula from prehistorical to remote historical times created forms and bequeathed them to the present. The technology of bridges, the need for castles, fortresses, and walls, but also the custom of the temple. Next, please. And we are at Coimbra now. You have at your right side the Holy Cross Church from Coimbra City. The interior of St. Michael's Chapel at the University at Coimbra, the University of Coimbra with the tower. And this is a royal palace. This was a royal palace of Coimbra since 1537. It was the university. Here, stones and walls, there are stones and walls of many ages. Arts from different historical times, from the Roman period passing through the Suevi and Visigoth peoples of Eastern Europe, strongly marked in architecture by the Arabian presence from the 18th century, then by the Portuguese monarchy until today. It's a lot of history in the same place. The Baroque library of the university from 18th century is one of the almost beautiful in the world. This all set formed the oldest nucleus of the University of Coimbra, the upper part of the city where it is located, and Sophia Street at downtown of Coimbra. It was the widest street in Europe in the 16th century. It is small today. Our World Heritage Site, Humanities Heritage. Next, please. And more palaces, like 4 palaces. Calouste Palace from 18th century with French influence, and Pena Palace at Sintra near Lisbon, both of them from Romantic period. The taste of monasteries, the monastery of Batalha, Gothic, and the palace convent of Mafra near Lisbon, neoclassical and Baroque from 18th century too. Next, please. All of this is framed of the austere beauty of the granite mountains, the green tranquility of the valleys, stones with history, with soul, and cut by rivers. The dimension of surrounding beaches from hand to end, all of this, and the people who recognize themselves. When we say heritage, we celebrate a community that from image to image sees itself a little more distant from itself. Between permanence and ephemerality, between the material and the intangible, the heritage of a people is the discourse of its soul. And now we visit with me here in this presentation, a museum and a wonderful museum under the sky. It's Idanha Velha, historical village at the of Castelo Branco, an important archaeological station in the Iberian Peninsula and UNESCO territory. Sleeping in the band of the vast plain that extends between the mountains of Gardunha and Penha Garcia, embraced by the Ponsul River, and with the majestic, we see in the slide, the majestic mountain of Monsanto. Recently, it was a scene from the Syria War of Thrones. In the background, the poor and dark houses of Idanha Velha can be seen. Next, please. We see we can see here the place and the strategic, the important place. We can see from this picture from National Geographic why Romans and other people who stand here in Peninsula liked this place, and it was important. A large manor house just juts out to one side. A church, the old cathedral of Idanha Velha. It was a mosque in the Arabian period. Presents the succession of three naves. The hall occupies an area surrounded by the ruins of a robust wall. Next, please. You can see here the wall rehabilitated by archaeologists, and it's the north entrance, and above another door, the south door, with medieval anthropomorphic graves, as we can see. On the other side, the ruins of strong tower, left side, a strong tower can be seen. Flanking the village, a bridge of Roman descent above, mutilated by time, spans the river, the Ponsul River. A silence hangs in the air that the murmur of the waters seems to intensify. In streets, the people who live in the village today, their people lived there, withdraw silently. Millenary cornices serve as a step to one or another house. Next to doors, there are capitals from columns serving as seats. Almost everything remains from an ancient Roman municipality, the old Roman Edutania. Later, the episcopal city of the Swabian kingdom, then later the Visigoth kingdom. The Arabs from the north of Africa at 18th century brought about the tragedy from which Edutania no longer rose. When the kings of Portugal wanted to repopulate it, they could not even convince its owners. The bishop, pivot of city life, left. We can see in this slide the pillory. It's the testimony of a medieval symbol of county and justice, and attests the importance of the in medieval times of the village. From town to town, from town to village, and then to the neighboring parish, Idenya lost its importance. A few years ago, it returned to its village status. Neither a street nor a house changed. Edutania died long ago, but not the spirit of the place. Human carelessness kept her as her fury had left her centuries ago. The time was more favorable to this place. It preserved material evidence of the past splendor. This historical village and UNESCO territory is so modest that if these ruins did not exist, no one would believe in the greatness of the important Roman city it was. The city that flourished for 6 centuries and survived 13 attests to its life by the largest collection of Roman epigraphic documents in Portugal. You see one above in this slide on the right side. It's an exclusive testimony of a past that is still being reconstituted. Another, please, next. Thank you. Rehabilitate stick mill, the olive oil mill, churches from the 16th and to the 18th century, a section of the wall rebuilt in metallic material on which a house was superimposed, keep the first building of the Edutania Lapidary Museum. Next, please. It's the first building of the Edutanian Lapidary Museum. It's very nice. It's from since Roman times, then medieval times. Today the museum is on cathedral. The collection is preserved on the old cathedral. Taking all of these is giving life to a land and its inhabitants in a life that has long passed, aiming to make it better known, more respected and more loved. This enhances the national heritage. In this museum under the sky, the atmosphere is perfect when the sun shines in the bright light. Torn between light and shadow, a whispering silence hovers, always. Presence of a past that is present, of the women and men who still live, love, work, suffer, and die here. The land's past is longer than the way to get there. Here, the world seems untouched, in an almost agonizing loneliness. To encourage this type of experience is undoubtedly to educate for citizenship, for cultural identity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Isabel. It's very poetic, you know. Well, I would like to invite Sir Emil. How do you like the presentation of our Miss Gracia?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say Mozambique is just next door to my country. We share a lot of common things. So Lopez, it was very interesting to see the motivation that you give young people to share the experience of the museum. And for Isabel, I think she's given a very, very elaborate, no doubt about it, various aspects of heritage and culture and education. And all those beautiful sceneries would be are well documented. And I think I could notice there most of them are UNESCO heritage sites, which is quite interesting. I don't have much to say except to appreciate the good work that has been done so far. And hats off to Isabel and Lopez. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sir Emmanuel. And thank you very much, Ms. Isabel, as well as Sir Lopez, for your presentations. Our next presenter is Dr. Altanai Berganova, sorry. She is the head of a visitors department in Kyrgyz National Museum of Fine Arts. And she's here to present on a very interesting title. I'm pretty sure everybody would love this. Ms. Altanay, would you like to share your own screen?
Yes, 1 second. One thing is that it says there that I'm a doctor, which I'm not yet.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just have a bachelor's degree, so the PhD is still ahead of me. But thanks, that's kind of putting things into setting goals for me, basically.
It is really nice. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you feel so good to hear a doctor, in front of your name.
Sounds nice, huh? Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Well, this is a presentation that I usually do for designer students here. And the first name that comes into mind when you talk about the art and design collaboration, that it is the great Henri Matisse, the famous French Fauvist, and the way he transferred his cultural heritage, his own hobbies and interests into his works. And later on, we'll also see some examples of how it can be done in the Kyrgyz context. That this presentation was meant to call upon the local designers or the fashion designer students who to incorporate artworks into their designs, and to enter into this collaboration with art and art institutions, and how it's mutually beneficial for both sides. So Henri Matisse comes from the textile, from a town, Le Cateau-Cambrésis in France, that it was known for its textiles. And of course that it was hard for him to avoid the fact that the different textiles had on him and his artistical works. And you can see this Egyptian curtain in the background. He's sitting next to it, and you can see the same curtain used in a lot of his works, like the one that I have behind me. So it's also the color scheme from those textiles he also uses in his works. And he also studied a lot of Chinese ceramics, and this relationship between the ornament and the background, and how sometimes the borders are very sometimes it's really hard to tell what's the background and what's the ornament with the Chinese ceramics, the famous Chinese porcelain. And so Matisse was affected by that as well. And I like to think that well, China and Kyrgyzstan, they had a lot of interactions. They share borders, and there is the same principle in Kyrgyz traditional ornament as well, the equality between the space that ornament and background occupies. So I like to think that Matisse was affected, or like it's by something that was common in all of this region here. Well, he designed, well, of course, he was affected by textiles, and he designs costumes for the famous Russian ballet. He was a painter mostly, but then even his paintings feature items of clothing, the names basically of the works, the items of clothing, and not always the people who wear the clothes. He expresses emotions through the vivid colors and forms, and he tries to give off this, especially given that he worked during the World War II, and it was grueling times in Europe. It was war, it was a lot of bloodshed. So his works are in contrast with that. They are very colorful, and he was trying to celebrate life despite all the tragedy that happened. Switch to the next slide. This is one example of his work of his that was named after a headdress that a woman is wearing, but the woman is actually his wife. But he still named the painting after the scarf that she's wearing on her head. Here as well, we know nothing about the character, but it's called La Robe Jaune, so it's the yellow dress. It's no mentions of the character again. And this is one example, example of artwork that's become a very successful fashion trend. This is a painting by Matisse that's called the Romanian Blouse. It's a national clothing that comes from Romania in Eastern Europe. And what the Yves Saint Laurent did for their fall winter season is that they recreated that blouse, and they had basically the whole catwalk, the whole collection of clothing that was inspired by Romanian ethnic design. So this is one example of a very successful collaboration between art and fashion design, and it is hard to tell who benefited most from it. Next. Well, Matisse did not only paint, he also had his famous cutouts. Just the paper cutouts, he would use paper painted with gouache and then cut out. And this interesting technique that he used is that he held the scissors, and to cut out, he didn't move the scissors, but he moved the paper around the scissors, which made for a very interesting shapes. And you can see that he not only used the cutouts themselves, but also the leftovers, the backgrounds from the cutouts. He used them as well to create art pieces, which is again very similar to Kyrgyz traditional handicraft, where we have felt carpets that are designed in the same way, where you'd cut out the ornament on two different colors of felt, and then the same ornament, and then flip. So you have like white on brown or brown on white. And that's it's very interesting to see how in two different worlds of Central Asia and Europe, the designs are very similar, and in modern day and in the historical past. Let's see. So this is what Matisse did in the cathedral, in the chapel, in the Rosary Chapel in the town of Vans, in a little monastery complex. So it's not the paper now, but the stained glass medium where he transferred his designs. And this is how the fashion world has played with the artworks of Matisse, different designers creating clothing. Even well, that Chapel of Rosary in Vans, on the left you can see the priest from that chapel, and the fact that he's wearing a robe that it's in a very modern Matisse-like design is very surprising and astonishing, because church is considered to be the strict institution where everything's according to order. But Matisse has even convinced and made effect on the church fashion, so to say, with his colorful forms. So some more Matisse's works adopted for clothing, and more Yves Saint Laurent here. And this is the quote that I usually give to the students who are struggling with, you know, how inspiration is always a problem. And for me, working at the Fine Arts Museum, it is very important to try and present to the students ways as to where to seek inspiration and how to do it legally and respectfully as well. And Matisse always said to not wait for inspiration in the first place. That would be rule number one, just to start working, and then inspiration would come along. And those works that look like a lot, like Henri Matisse, are actually by a Kyrgyz painter, Symen Kulchokmorov. Those are the paintings from our collection from the Gaparati of Kyrgyz National Museum of Fine Arts. Matisse had a lot of textile in his still lifes, and also a lot of his famous paintings feature interiors of rooms and houses. And what Symen Kulchokmorov did is that he also used this very colorful Fauvist-like color palette, but he adapted it to Central Asia and to Kyrgyzstan. And if Matisse has interiors of French Mediterranean coastal houses, Symen Kulchokmorov features the yurt, the traditional dwelling of the nomads that I talked about in my previous presentations. And those are the different quotations by famous fashion designers when they were asked if they considered themselves to be a designer or an artist. And Coco Chanel, the famous strong-charactered lady, claimed that fashion designers are not actually artists; they are just clothes producers, and that's probably dictated by the time that she lived in, because that was the time of modern art, when art ceased to be just something beautiful in the first place, and it was a lot of art that was produced that looked initially ugly, but then made you feel things and think about things, when art started gaining new functions besides just decorating salons and interiors. But there she is, and she thinks that she was not an artist. But Paul Poiret, her colleague, definitely felt like he was an artist, because if the ladies wanted to have their portraits done by artists, then when they come and want their dresses to be made, then the dressmaker is definitely an artist, and Paul Poiret would be offended if you called him just a tailor. He would consider himself as would self-identify as artist, definitely. And Karl Lagerfeld here, well, he was short and precise, and he just never mixed the two. He said, fashion is fashion and art is art, and there's not anything more to be said about it. It's just two separate things. And this, of course, here are the advantages that you'd gain from arts and fashion collaboration. Maybe some of you are from the museums, from the fine arts museums, and this could be a nice way to tap into the potential of the fashion industry. We here now in Kyrgyzstan are trying to bring together the art world, the museums, and the fashion designers, because there's so much potential that we store here at the museum. It's 19,000 museum objects, and each one could be an inspiration for something that could be popular and mass-produced. So the audience, one of the advantages definitely is that the audiences broaden both for the museums and the fashion designers. They can tap not only into their target audiences, but onto different layers of society that would not be interested in their product before. Then, of course, this gives the designer a possibility to be displayed at a museum, because then it will, what he makes, the product, would not only be just a piece of clothing and only have this utilitarian function, but also be considered as a work of art or a product inspired by a work of art. And of course, that would this collaboration would help the artists become more popular, and because artists here are not well, they are not as popular as, for example, fashion bloggers, unfortunately, but that's true. And after all this very long socialist realism period, when you were supposed to praise the Soviet Union and its heritage, it is hard for painters to kind of be mass popular. So collaborating with fashion designers would help the painters become more popular with wider audience. The self-expression, of course, the end users of those products would gain a lot more variety and options in self-expression, and even the looks that they put together with those items could be works of art as well, like a statement. And of course, art would definitely make fashion more intellectual and refined.
Sorry, I think there is some sort of issue with internet. Well, you know, till then I can actually share her a few slides. Please feel free to tell me if you want me to stop in any of the slides. Well, she was almost at the end. This was the slide she was in. Well, hopefully she will come back, and then, you know, we can actually ask a few questions to her. Okay. So since our Miss Altanai, she is not here, I would like to request Sir Emil, maybe like when she comes back, maybe you could give a little bit of keynote regarding her presentation. All right.
All right.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir. So next, I would like to request Ms. Iza Khan for the presentation. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right.
Can you all see that?
Sorry, not now, not yet. All right. Well, Ms. Iza Khan here, she is the director in Center for Cultural and Department from Islamabad, Pakistan. And yes, so now we can see your screen.
Here you go. Thank you so much, Javed Saab and Meena, for having me here. And I would like to apologize for not being able to speak loudly and very clearly because I'm not feeling well lately due to pollen season. But I'll try to speak as loud and clear as possible. Hope you can listen to me. I'm audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, today's presentation is about an exhibition we recently organized with the title Roots or Routes, Exploring Pakistan's Buddhist and Jain Histories. Despite the prominence of Jainism and Buddhism in the ancient history of Pakistan, the demographic shift at the time of independence in 1947 has led to an eclipse of the religious heritage of world communities, which once thrived here in the region comprising today's Pakistan. For a variety of reasons, the multi-religious heritage of Pakistan, pivotal for the growth of pluralist Pakistani identity, has been erased from public memory. The communities which are custodians of the Jain and Buddhist heritage of Pakistan are oblivious to the importance of glorious heritage of Pakistan, which needs to be acknowledged and celebrated. Since the exhibitions are one of the most potent ways of creating public awareness of social and public issues, this exhibition focused on exploring the Gandhara civilization in the context of Buddhist and Jain history in Pakistan. With the financial support of World Bank, the exhibition was part of Punjab Tourism for Economic Growth project, having technical assistance from UNESCO and Center for Culture and Development as an implementing partner. The ultimate objective of the project was to integrate tangible and intangible cultural heritage of Gandhara civilization in local context, to highlight the respect for heritage and cultural diversity and promote cultural pluralism through an exhibition, panel discussion, site visits, and showcasing of local crafts for sustainable development in Punjab. The Gandhara exhibition, which was the first ever public exhibition, demonstrated the potential of the Textile Museum to arrange exhibitions and educational activities for the transmission of cultural heritage to the young generation. The exhibition received a great response from the local communities, diplomats and visitors from different cities. Social communities are encouraged to use museums and cultural platforms to educate and communicate with their ancestors. There is an urgent need for all Pakistani museums and community groups to come together to promote and preserve intangible cultural heritage through museums to the next generation in innovative ways. There were two sections of the exhibition, an indoor and an outdoor section. The indoor section comprising of the artifacts of antiquity belonging to Jain and Buddhist heritage drawn from the reserves collection of the Textile Museum. The second section comprising of photography exhibits held outdoor using backlawns of Textile Museum for making the exhibition a spectacular, memorable, unique, and an innovative experience. As you can see, these are the backlawns. At the top, it's a main museum building here, and these are the backlawns used for the exhibition display. These are the photographic images for you all to have a quick glance. The visual components of the exhibition included images and graphics in combination with verbal presentations, elements, label text, and quotes of Lord Buddha and Mahavira. It followed creative ways of organizing content that move beyond traditional chronological or subject categorizations or object classifications. It used the fundamentals of Buddhist and Jain religious ideas to fuse with the exhibition displays. The pictorial representations were digitally manipulated to create a more impactful representation of the exhibits, images of sites, monuments, and objects, rather than presenting them just as photographs. Besides photographs, paintings, and other artworks were of different artists were displayed on panels. As you can see here, we use the Gandhara construction style on the backside of as the background of the exhibition panels, and the artwork at the foreground. These are the photographic visuals digitally created containing objects and the sites. A separate panel containing photographs and letters of Sir John Marshall, the Director General of Archaeology in India, survey from 1902 to 1931, and his local assistant Khan Bahadur AD Siddiqui, was designed to acknowledge the dedication and hard work of their team for bringing Gandhara civilization on the surface of Earth, which we witness today. This is the painting of Dharmarajika Stupa, which was excavated by St. John Marshall and his team, and he is the assistant, the local assistant from Texela. Besides antiquity exhibits and photographic exhibitions, a cultural show of local craft industry was also organized to promote the culture and creative industries of the region, which are carrying on the living traditions of Gandhara. Stalls were put up at Texla Museum's outdoor spaces with more participation of women artisans. These stalls generated a lot of public interest and contributed to the dwindling livelihood of artisans. The embroidery stalls included fulkari, gota, shadow work, chundri, mukesh, crochet, and loom crafted handbags, whereas the stone craft stalls consisted of marble lamps, garden lights, and various products. These are the visuals from the outdoor spaces, and for the craft stalls. These are the examples of traditional knowledge which are being transferred from generation to generation in Gandhara region. So these are the contemporary examples of Gandhara art. A team of local traditional knowledge bearers was engaged for storytelling sessions on heritage sites. As you can see, we invited different schools, colleges, and institutions to visit the heritage sites. I'm sorry. So that they can be aware of the significance of their heritage, and they feel proud of what they have as the custodian of the traditional knowledge and that cultural heritage. These are visuals from Mohra Muradu Stupa and Monastery. This is the ancient city of the World Heritage Site of CECA. This is again Dharmarajika Stupa, and this is from Mohra Muradu. This is again the monastery from Mohra Muradu, and this is from the same monastery. These are the school children being explained by the local craftsmen about the how they used to create crafts and display them in the monasteries and those archaeological sites. This is the last page of the exhibition catalog, which we created there. So I believe that's all from my side. A quick round just to give you a glimpse of what we have been doing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, ma'am. Well, I would like to welcome Sir Emil to give his perspective too regarding your presentation.
Yeah, that was a very interesting presentation. I'd like to say I like the title, Roots and Routes, the origins and the paths. So I think you've demonstrated a very good picture of the two religions and how they are exhibited in various scenarios. It's also interesting to note some of the conservation measures that have taken place. I was looking at the photos very carefully. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. And it gives us an insight about the museums from your country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Emil, and thank you very much, Ms. Isa. Well, our next presenter is Ms. Elsa Demini. I'm really sorry that there was a switch in the turns. Well, she belongs to ICOM CECA Mozambique, and she will be presenting on the roles of ICOM CECA Mozambique. Ms. Elsa, are you there?
Hello, everyone.
All right, let me share your screen.
Okay, good morning. Now it's good. Good afternoon.
It's good.
Okay. As my colleague Lopes was presenting, this presentation was, we did this job in a project, and I will present about our CECA Mozambique, how it started and how we are working on this presentation, on this project. Next, please. Okay. The CECA community in Mozambique was officially established during the ICOM conference in Japan, and during the conference was elected our correspondent, that is Ms. Lopes. And there was other sub-communities, committees, but CECA was the most active and is the committee that is working more in Mozambique about this, in this aspect. Next, please. The objective of CECA Mozambique is to support museums in the structuring of museological program and training of museums educators, as we have perceived that in our museums there is no educational programs structured. They work without any plan, like they receive the visitors and they keep guiding them with no program. And as CECA, we want to work with the museums to help them to structure their program and train the museum educators. Other objective is to support museums structuring of the museological programming and training of the museum educators, as I said before. Next, please. These pictures show what we have been doing with the museum, with some museums in Mozambique. In the left, we can see a picture working with kids, and this was a work that we have been doing at the CFM Museum. The other pictures is about a visit of during a visit in the museum when we were was working with the staff of the museum, training them how to conduct a visit and how to prepare it before they come. Next, please, is the last one, and thank you. Sorry for my English.
No worries. We are very happy that you were actually here to share with us. So, Sir Emil, what would you like to say about the presentation, the sharing of experiences and all?
Yes, the teacher in me is always happy to hear any progress towards museum education. I think museum education plays a very significant role in our outreach services. So thank you, Elsa, from Mozambique. Keep up the good work of CECA. I think it's a very important subcommittee of ICOM. And I saw the objectives that you have set for yourselves as CECA Mozambique. We wish you all the best. And maybe ICOM Zambia will be writing to you to find out how you are planning your training programs, so that maybe we can learn from you some tactics and tricks of good training. Thank you, Elsa.
Thank you very much, Sir Emil, for such a beautiful comment. And I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of engagement with you as well as Ms. Elsa in the future. Well, our final presenter for the day is Mr. Prakash Chungaru. He is the exhibition manager of Rajiv Gandhi Science Center in Mauritius. And he will be presenting on the title Assessing Customer Satisfaction of Teenage Visitors in Museum and Science Centers. So let me welcome Mr. Prakash. Hello, sir. So you are muted. Could you please unmute your mic?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much for making me part of this nice session. And it was very enriching up to now. I've got a lot to learn. And I will be sharing my screen. And
sure. Sure. Let me just stop sharing this. Yes.
Okay. So up to now, we've been having some very colorful, very nice presentations, and I hope that you like this one, which is a little more specific to a target audience that museums are targeting these days. It is about the teenagers. And this study is part of a bigger study which was conducted to look at the motivation, experience, and satisfaction of teenage visitors in museums and science centers. And today, this presentation will be looking only at the customer satisfaction aspect of teenage visitors in museums. So just to give you an idea where Mauritius is situated, so we are a very small island here in the African continent, and it's a small map of our country. And when you talk of museums in Mauritius, the history of museums in Mauritius dates back to 1826, when for the first time the idea for the creation of a museum was came up. And then the first museum opened in 1842. Okay, now this year we just celebrated 50 years of our independence, and up to now we have some 30 museums in Mauritius, both public and private. So the context of this study is that thousands of people are visiting museums every year, but there is a new area where nowadays museum professionals are trying to look is the target audience. Okay, and some research lately has found that teenagers and the number of teenagers coming to museums is gradually decreasing. And as museum professionals, there's a need to listen and embrace the youngsters into this museum community so that we can use their ideas, understand what they want, and then try to satisfy them by giving them excellent experiences in museum. So this research aimed to assess the customer satisfaction of teenagers in museums. And for this study, the assumption is that when we talk about museum, I mean with museum, it is traditional museums, science centers, and also interpretation centers. And when you talk of teenagers, what do we mean? We are looking at the generation generation Z. That is the digital natives, the I generation, that is those who are very much into the technology, okay? And this generation, they are schoolgoers, and a visit to the museum forms part of their curriculum, okay? And what museums mean to them, as stated by Jones 2008, museums and libraries contribute immensely to youngsters' social, intellectual, and emotional development. Hence, they should also form part of museums and libraries. Therefore, the museum agenda, as stated by Schwartz 2005, museum staff need to listen carefully and treat teenagers with appreciation and respect. Now, as part of customer satisfactions, according to Parker, customer satisfaction can be looked at either as an outcome or as a process. As an outcome, it is basically an outcome of a consumption activity or experience. And as a process, it is evaluating what was received as compared to what was expected. Now, for this study, the definitional framework proposed by Gies and Scott 2002 was used to define customer satisfaction as the intensity of the emotional and cognitive response regarding a particular attribute of a product or service determined at the time of evaluation. That is, we listen to what the teenagers had to say about what they learned and also what they felt regarding the museum attributes, okay? And the theoretical framework that was developed for this purpose was based on Maslow and Sovereign 2002 three-factor theory of customer satisfaction, where they looked at customer satisfaction as basic factors, performance factors, and excitement factors. That is, in a museum, like any other business, there are some basic factors, that is things that people expect normally. They want to see this minimum thing when they come to museum, okay? And if they don't see that, this lack of that particular expectation creates dissatisfaction, okay? And in terms of performance, these are attributes of a museum which, when it is performing very well, it gives immense satisfaction to visitors. But when the quality of those attributes is not met, then that leads to dissatisfaction, okay? And then the excitement factor, that is those attributes which leads to delight among customers. So the final theoretical framework for this research was an extended version of the three-factor theory, where we looked at the delighters, that is what excited teenagers, the satisfiers, that is what created both positive and negative responses among teenagers, and dissatisfiers, that is what were those attributes in the museum which teenagers didn't like, okay? And then the indifferent factor, that is those factors which are present in the museum, but the teenagers didn't care about, okay? And also at the reverse factors, that is those factors which we as museum professionals believe that these must be in the museum, but which created negative impact on teenagers, reverse impact. We'll look at some examples later. So this theoretical framework was closely linked to the Kano model, which talks about the satisfaction and dissatisfaction of people, customers. And the methodology for this study was a constructivist epistemology. And this was a phenomenological study, while bracketing all my personal assumptions, okay, my biases. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic, all the museums and schools were closed and the services had shifted online. Hence, for this study, an online open-ended questionnaire was used. Accordingly, a convenience and snowball sampling was favored. Hence, a small number of individuals with relevant characteristics were identified, and they were later invited to share those links for the questionnaire with their friends. And for data analysis, a progressive focusing technique was used, where data was looked from a wide angle lens, then funneled down by sifting, sorting, reviewing, and then reflecting on the data. And a deductive approach was used where at the very start of the study, some categories, themes, and codes were developed. And then during that, I tried to look at where these codes were occurring, where the themes were occurring. Okay, so these were basically in the satisfaction, there were 3 themes: the cognitive aspect, the affective aspect, and the determinants, that is what were delighters, what were satisfiers. And then at the level of museum attributes, we had the content, the delivery, the exhibits, the experience, the infrastructure, the service, and the site. Now, what I meant by the content, the exhibit, the delivery, experience, infrastructure, these are basic terms that we use in museum. I won't go into details, but just to give an indication, by content, I meant the information content of the exhibition. By exhibit, I mean the whole exhibit, the collection of objects, artifacts, paintings. And delivery means how those things were being delivered to the audience, the display techniques, the presentation. Okay. By experience, I mean the set of activities and presentations offered by the museum. Infrastructure referred to the buildings and facilities. By service, we mean the customer service, that is how visitors were being welcomed and received. And by site, I mean the geographical location and the accessibility of the museum. And for data analysis, 2 methods were used to look in the data. Firstly, the patterns in the code occurrences, that is the frequency at which each code was occurring, was observed. And in the second instance, the intensity of code co-occurrences, that is where 2 codes were occurring at the same time, were looked at. And the relationships between the co-occurrence was analyzed. So based on the analysis, these are some of the findings. So what is, the teenagers were very much had very much positive response as regard to the experiences. Okay, and then the second most thing that they liked was infrastructure. They were amazed by the architectural beauty of the buildings, because most of the museums in Mauritius, they are colonial buildings, they are ancient buildings which are very, very unique. Okay, and at the cognitive level, that is in terms of what they learned, in terms of knowledge, we can see that the students, they were very much amazed by the delivery techniques, that is the objects that were displayed there, and the way those were displayed, were presented, they were amazed by that. Okay, and also they liked very much the content, the information. Now, as regards to the correlation analysis, so I looked at the positive and negative responses that was received. And for this purpose, the C coefficient, that is the intensity of the correlation, was used, where less than 0.5 was considered as low, and greater than 0.15 was considered as low, and greater than 0.50 was considered as high. Now, just to put this in context, I used Astas TI quality analysis software to analyze the whole data. So as you can see here, we received some very positive responses for experience, okay, and but on the rest, there were also very positive responses for exhibits, but the rest responses were very medium. So those were categorized as low and high, and by looking at the correlation, we try to find that there is a pattern. So I developed a self-typology of what is known as the complements and complete matrix, as developed by Cabot and Tengen, 1988, where they use the intensity of complaints and the intensity of complements as regards to attributes to classify them into dissatisfiers, satisfiers, indifferent, and delighters. So what are dissatisfiers? Dissatisfiers are where we get a very high intensity of positive responses, and we get very low, dissatisfiers are where we get high intensity of negative responses and low positive responses. Satisfiers are where we receive both high negative and high positive. That is, people are very much affected positively and both negatively. Indifferent are those aspects where we receive low positive and low negative responses, that is very less responses. And delighters are those where we get very high positive responses and very low negative responses. So when you look at the data, we found that teenagers are delighted by the museum experience, okay, and the exhibits. And some of the quotes, I've just quoted some of the statements that they made. As teen one said, my visit was very enjoyable and great. Another one said, it was very nice, wonderful, and a memorable experience. Now, as regards to exhibits, I really liked the aquatic life section of the museum. Another one, everyone was happy and curious to learn about the new things. Now, in terms of dissatisfiers, we found that there was, we couldn't identify, this tool that I used was not able to identify the dissatisfier. This is also because the teenagers' answers were very diplomatic. Okay, so I found that they tried to be very positive in giving responses. So it was somewhat biased from their part. Now, as regards to the satisfiers, that is where they've been giving us positive and negative answers, I mean, high, both. This is the infrastructure and delivery. That is the infrastructure of museums and the delivery technique used by museums influence the satisfaction of teenagers greatly. Okay, now, when you look at the infrastructure, we found that the positive responses is as regards to, like they said, that the building was very beautiful and well maintained. There was a good infrastructure, and even without the personnel, we could figure out what was going on. Now, in terms of negative responses, there were many dead leaves in front of the gate, giving a bad impression, and the building require improvement and needs to upgrade in terms of design and structure. When we look at the delivery part, we found that they said were very clear and easy to understand, which allowed us to learn many things. And in terms of negative, we can say sometimes the workers do not explain clearly, and sometimes they do not explain at all. Okay, so in terms of indifferent attributes, we found the indifferent, that is where there were very less response, the content, the site, and the service. That is, the teenagers in some of the responses we found that they were least concerned with the content because they were so much amazed by the other aspects like the experience, the infrastructure, and the delivery. Okay. So in terms of delivery, staff tend to provide lengthy explanations to the visitors. And fortunately, teenagers often found this explanation to be boring. So this is reverse attribute. That is, we as museum professionals, we try to give maximum information to the students. We try to show maximum of things, but this not necessarily give positive response among the teenagers. Others found the informative panels too brief. In some places, there were only small labels, so teenagers found that this was too brief. And many a times, intending to create a dramatic effect, some museums showcased only a few selected artifacts with big spaces. So this also created some reverse effect on the satisfaction of teenagers. One thing which was common, that teenagers had reverse effect when they saw the stuffed animals, which made them feel uneasy. So, you know, in many museums, natural history museums, there are stuffed birds, stuffed animals. This looks very nice, but for some teenagers, this creates a sense of fear in them. So, to conclude, the findings can be classified as this research showed that there were no dissatisfied identified. But in terms of satisfiers, we found that delivery and infrastructure were considered as satisfiers, content, service, and site as indifferent attributes, and exhibit and experience or delighters for teenagers. So this is where museums should make an effort to delight their customers. So I also asked one question during that study. So what could, according to you, what could museums do to improve the satisfaction of teenagers? These are some of the answers, some of the suggestions that they made. So in terms of content, some wished that the information panels could be more elaborate. Okay. As regards to the delivery, they wished museums would incorporate more of latest technologies to improve the exhibition. adoption of innovative ways to interact with visitors. In terms of experience, teenagers enjoy thrills and they want to see more interactivity and novelty. Okay, this thus suggested to include games, photo booths, 7D cinemas, virtual and augmented reality. So in terms of service, they were looking for more trained and motivated staff. In terms of infrastructure, they wished the buildings could be completely renovated and enhanced. And they could, some of the museums in Mauritius are very small. So they wish the museums could be bigger, with better lighting and air conditioning. And as regards to the site, they wish that the site of the museums could have more landscaping and greenery. So in terms of discussions, we found that some of the findings concurred with previous research made by Snadel and McIntosh and Park and Valentine, but also as regards to satisfiers, the research concurred with Zanibela to 2018 assertion that museum infrastructure is part of core offerings and is a bivalent satisfier. But in contrast, as regards to Bacon, Crompton, Herzberg, al, and also Bohm 2006 and Zakia et al., who classify the infrastructure facilities of local museums as hygiene factors, that is dissatisfiers. So here there was some contrast in the findings. As regards to indifferent content, site and service, this contrasted with Bidgood 2002, that people who visit the gift shop and perceive a museum to be more satisfying, more pleasant and more satisfying. So this is what that study showed some contrasting results. But as regards to the reverse attributes, it concurred with what Scriven 1992 and Bidgood 2002 found, that avoiding synthetic and semantic complexity, that is use of lengthy and complex sentences, should be avoided in labels, and also the difficulty of visitors to increase mental effort in comprehending interpretive labels. That is, we should make the labels easy to read and easy to understand. This is what is going to help our visitors. To conclude, therefore, museums should invest more resources in developing interactive exhibits that would enhance experience and thus delight the teenagers, improve infrastructure and delivery, as these contribute a lot to the satisfaction of teenagers, optimize resources on developing content, site and service, as teenagers are little indifferent to that, and also pay attention to the delivery techniques, okay, as these can have reverse effect on teenagers. Now to conclude, so these are my references. I thank you for attending this presentation, listening to the presentation, and I hope that this will help you understand a little bit what I try to find out, and I hope this will contribute to the knowledge and also contribute at the practical level for museum professionals. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Prakash. Well, Sir Emil, what do you think about this assessment?
Yeah. Are you able to see me, to hear me?
Yes.
I want to say, Prakash, that was a very good and I think a very fair research, and the findings are quite general. My experience with young people, or let me say my experience with museum visitors, is that the tour guides or the people who handle museum visitors must be very age specific, career specific, gender specific, and also culture specific. Young people are full of energy. Young people, like Prakash is saying, they want the hands-on thing. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy the visit. So they'll be more interested in something that is affective, something that appeals to their youthfulness. They may not love the infrastructure so much or the surroundings and so on, but hands-on activities are usually very good for young people. That's why one exhibition may be presented in one way to a young group of youths, but to a professional groups, the same exhibition may be presented in another way. What I'm saying here is the personality of the tour guide is very, very important. It is important for the tour guide to use his or her personality to appeal to the visitors. And also, when I look at the title for Prakash, it says customer satisfaction. In short, that is evaluation. What is the feedback? What do visitors write in the visitors book? Do you give them a suggestion box? What form of feedback do you get? So thank you very much, Prakash. There are very good learning points there for young people or young museum visitors. And I think your research was very scientifically executed, and it is very helpful for all of us to understand, especially the delivery and the experience part. We cannot change the infrastructure so much, but the delivery and the experience of the museum visitor is very, very important. Thank you, Prakash.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Sir Emil, and also thank you very much, Mr. Prakash. Could you please unshare your screen? All right, thank you very much. Well, we are almost at the end of the session, and we are taking questions for our presenters. We already have 2 questions, so if anybody has a question, please write us in the chat box and I can read it out for our presenters. So the first question was actually for Dr. Isabel, but then she has already left, and I have sent the question to Dr. Isabel. So the question was regarding the information of councils for the decline of the Caesars. And Dr. Isabel, she has promised that she will send us the answer through email. So, well, the next question is to Mr. Prakash. This is the question from Ms. Shivani Aditya Banerjee. Well, she is a museologist and a member of National Committee of ICOM India. And her question for you is, could you please tell us about the information, what do you think about the decentralizing of museums in today's world and in Mauritius? Let me repeat the question again. What do you think about the decentralizing of museums in today's world and in Mauritius?
Well, the decentralization of museum is happening around the world, but in Mauritius, we are a very small island. So for us, it is not that important and impactful, but what we do here in terms of exhibitions, what I know some museums are doing, even the science center is doing, is outreach programs. So there are traveling exhibitions and mobile exhibitions, but I know in other countries, big countries, my experience from what I've seen in India, there are lots of outreach programs with museums they organize, and they take, for example, the museum bus, which are fitted with exhibitions, and also they have mobile exhibitions which they carry and they bring to remote places. So the decentralization museum is something good because this is a new trend in marketing. You have to go towards the consumers.
All right, thank you very much for answering the question, Mr. Prakash. So if anybody has any other question for our speakers, please raise your hand, and yes, we'll allow you to ask question now. Yes, Ms. Bhamini. Yes.
Hello, I just popped in and listened to Mr. Prakash's work, with which I'm very much familiar, and I'm talking about the parameters that he considered in terms of satisfiers and dissatisfiers. And like he approached it from a management kind of perspective. And in my research, I found that these same satisfiers and dissatisfiers in terms of the emotion, in terms of the beauty, so they help in triggering learning also and situational interest, which I found in my research, which I approached from a different angle. So there are certain places where there is the intersection, and probably we'll be talking about that more of tomorrow. Yes. So it's not only about the marketing aspect, but they are also very useful to promote learning and affect in museum environment. I just wanted to highlight.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have one more question from Sir Emil to ICOM Mozambique. So the question is, how do you conduct training for staff? I think we have Sir Lopez here.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. The CECA now organizes the group of volunteers and the group, the professional of museum. We consult the books of a museum, didactic museum for to selection the content for the lesson these people. Now I don't have the program for to training professional in museum, but we begin with the wealth demand make to the program for to train young people and the professional in the museum. This is our ideas now. I rethink with Elsa for these papers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Elsa, would you like to add to this question? Let me repeat the question for you. For ICOM Mozambique, how do you conduct training for staff? Ms. Elsa, are you there? Well, till we wait for Ms. Elsa, does anybody have any question for our speakers or our, the session leader as well as the keynote speaker? Okay, silence means I think it is good that the presentation was really exciting and very, very fruitful. Well, I would like to request Sir Emil to summarize today's session. How did he feel about all these presentations and then the interaction that was happening in our chat sections?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Today's sessions have been eye-openers. I think today was a teacher's day. Yesterday was decolonization. Today it was museum education. And I think we have learned a lot from the fabrics. We didn't give the speaker, I think she left prematurely. What was her name? Was it Else? Not Else.
Oh, Altini.
What's her name again?
Altini.
Yeah, she was talking about fabric and fashion. I just wanted to comment, starting with her. First of all, she had already left. I saw the last slide there. It talked about copyrights, intellectual property rights. If you look at her last slide, when Mina was showing the slides after she left, I think it's very important for us to recognize intellectual property rights when we do our work. Let us recognize the original owners of the information. Also, she was talking about the works of a great artist, Matisse, and you saw how fashion and beauty and dress brings out character, brings out information over the years. Because there's a general feeling that art is the universal language. I may not understand Arabic, I may not understand Spanish, English, or any other language, but when we use art, we speak one language. And art carries a lot of symbolism, religious symbols, political symbols, social symbols, symbols of passion and love, symbols about tradition. So I think her work, her presentation on Matisse was very, very elaborate, because she captured the artist's work in various aspects, in the cathedrals, in the dress, and also the motifs. I could even see the contrast she was doing on Matisse, from a modern dress to one which was done years ago in the early 50s. I think a great, that was a job well done. And please pass on the message when you contact her, that I was very grateful. It was very interesting to hear from her. And also from my brother and my sister from Mozambique, next door to Zambia, just on the eastern part of my country. I think we'll be getting in touch with you soon. I think you have got great ideas. We have got also plans to start our own training programs. That's why I asked that question. If you have a curriculum, I think for me, it is an opportunity to exchange ideas and to network and synergize together. Thank you very much for coming on board. For Prakash, I think you gave a powerful scientific analysis of young people and their views when they visit the museum. I think it was quite representative. Most people would agree that those findings can be generalized even to our museums. I think that was a very good research. And what I can say is that feedback is very important. If a visitor comes to your museum and they don't leave a comment, you must get worried. You must get worried. So when they leave a comment, it gives us a chance to improve our services or to change something. We cannot change everything, but we can change something to suit the needs of our visitors. I think, thank you very much, Prakash, for that. Also, it shows us that young people have got certain areas of needs and other people may have other areas of need. It would be interesting to get to do the same research on a comparative level. Yeah. Also, I want to mention on Isa. Isa talked about roots, and I mentioned already, I like the title, Roots and Roots. Roots with double OTS shows where we come from, our heritage. And roots, the other root shows our path, where we are going or where we have come from. And I think you did a very good analysis on religion, particularly on Buddhism and Jainism. Also, I liked your presentation of the outdoor exhibitions. I think there was some aerial, I don't know if you used a drone or something to take those pictures. I think I liked the way the presentation of the outdoor exhibitions. Did I leave anyone out? I've talked about Mozambique. I've talked about Isabel on her cultural heritage. I think she did a very good job. She must be a very experienced lecturer or teacher. She could communicate. I think even with my eyes closed, I could still hear her voice leading us through step by step. She's a very organized and structured, organized learner and presenter. So I think it's very important because heritage, there's a statement she used. She said in one of the slides, traces inscribed in time. So our heritage writes something in time. And heritage, whether it's tangible or intangible, has to be passed on to the next generation. And I think it's a challenge for us museum professionals and museum staff to hold this generation clearly. And just above all, to thank you, Mina, for the good work that you're doing. You're doing a lot of administrative work and a lot of moderation. I don't think it is easy. Keep up the good work. And thank you to ICOM Pakistan, Muhammad in particular, for organizing these sessions. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Sir Emil. Well, I would like to invite Sir Javed. If you would like to share anything about today's session as well as yesterday's. Sir, you are muted. Javed, sir, you are muted. Could you unmute your mic?
Actually, I also scared from you. You see, you can sometimes say, put up your mic. Okay. I gave it time. So much said by Emmanuel and Lopez, so that I'm really short of words to say more on it, you see. But definitely, I say thank you to all speakers and all my guests, those who have attended and patiently listened. So definitely, it was a very good sharing of knowledge, I tell you. It was also some are very short presentation, but very much inspiring, you see. So, this group has presented, this session has presented the inspiring and sharing of knowledge package, you see. We have learned, I have, at least I have learned a lot from that. And thank you for that. Where is group leader? Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel. So he is the man behind this whole group, you see. So it's a group 07. You see, without him, it would have been not possible, because at one stage I was absolutely going to think that I gave Emmanuel a speaker place somewhere, and because he said so. He said, I can be a speaker. So then I given a second thought that how many group leader I should make a speaker. So why not to request Emmanuel? He is, some people are literally was thinking that there must be some better person should come and have this responsibility. But I thought that there is no better person than him. So, definitely he proved it really. You see, he has given us so great leadership to this group 07 and session. So I'm very thankful and grateful to him. And also definitely I'm grateful to Meena. I don't know. She is the asset. She has become a treasurer of this IVCOM and this ICOM family forum. So when she talked about that she is going to busy in other projects, then my heart starts sinking. So that what who will be take responsibility at her place, because I'm regularly testing people, but then I couldn't get someone, except there is one from Pakistan. I don't want to take her name, because she is also a very busy person. You see, she can't give time. It's when it should not be left curiosity. It's a sana. So she is very decent girl, and she can handle these kind of things. So definitely from Mongolia, there are so many people, and I have some Indian good youth, but they are I have to take care of them, because they have to take care of me also. So we both taking care of each other to not be caught by our governments, you see. So they scared from Modi Sahab, and we scared from Imran Khan. The Imran Khan is not now there anymore. So so this is the way. But definitely with Emmanuel with us, you see, Emmanuel with us, and many others from ICOM national committees and ICOM international committees. So we need not to scare about it. So anyone can come up and come forward and give us what you say, oxygen, which we will be shorting at any moment, you see. So thank you very much indeed, Emmanuel, and all my speakers of today. They have spoken very well. I personally know that one or two speakers were reluctant because of their language problems. You see, otherwise they were very perfect. And you have Emmanuel, you have assessed very well that she is a teacher. Isabel is a teacher. In fact, she is a history teacher. So she knows each and everything, but she only brought colleague unnecessarily, no, not unnecessarily, because we want someone to be here from your friends too. So it was rightly here. So he was rightly here, but then you see, she's just spoken a very good English, you see. So there was no language problem. There was no method to say, David, that helped me and this. But then you see, we always welcome everything. You see, we are here to encourage the interactions. So we encourage the interaction from Africa. We encourage the interaction from South Asia. We encourage the interaction from Europe, and we encourage the interaction from Latin America even. So our next target may be Far East, and then Australia, New Zealand, and then the USA, and so on, Finland and others. With these words, I say thank you very much. I don't want to take too much time, and please.
All right. Sure,
Thank you.
sir.
Over to
Thank
me
you.
now.
All right, thank you very much, Javed. So, well, I would like to inform you all that we have our third session tomorrow on 7th April with Botswana, and yes, we would love to see you again tomorrow for the session. Well, I would like to request our participants right now that please put on your camera on so that and also receive our gratitude of thanks. Right. Well, let me start with, my gratitude to all our presenters first. Well, my sincere gratitude to our keynote speaker, Mr. Emil Hamatwi, also our esteemed session leader, Mr. Lopez Isabel Masango, and our presenters, Ms. Elsa Demini, she has already left, but still, and also like Ms. Altaini, Kudai Berganova, I think I pronounced it right. Also, Ms. Isabel Besa-Garashia, and then Ms. Iza Khan, also Mr. Prakash Jungaru. Thank you all for your beautiful presentation and very, very insightful thoughts. And also, my sincere thanks to all our attendees who were here today. Sir David Bowman, Imran Somru, Pawani, Mr. Michael Melanowski. He is from the Storyteller Museum from Poland, and Osmavati. We had Shivani and Aditya Banerjee, Bamini Kumodu, Natasha Natsali, Guler, Hansu Bakola, also Buma ma'am, as well as Javed. So thank you very much for being here with us, and then encouraging all our presenters, as well as asking so many questions and interacting with each other. It has been a great day, and it felt very lively. Thank you very much, everybody. Well, with these remarks, I would like to say goodbye to you all, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Well, all right. Wish you all a good day and good evening.
Everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.